Alrighty. We are live. Welcome, one and all, to the Team Rivalry Show. Good lord. I'm actually kind of warm. It's freezing outside right now, but I'm really cold for some reason. Can you see my eyes okay? I feel like the lighting's a little off. Hello. I'm watching myself on YouTube here too. There's a little bit of a delay, but I want to see how it works. That's kind of fun. Alright. Well, how about it, guys? Week 3 is in the books. Week 4 is coming up this weekend. We're already a couple weeks out from being halfway done with the season, but that's the most disappointing thing about football, isn't it? Is that it's 4 months. You know, it's just over a third of the year long, but it feels like it goes so quickly, right? It was about September, October, November, December, and then January. So what is that? So 4 months. So the better part of 4 months anyway, because it's more like mid-January. It doesn't go through the whole thing. Usually the national championships usually that second weekend, right? Because they hold all of the playoff games, New Year's Day and all that, or whatever that weekend is. Anyway, welcome to the Team Rivalry Show podcast, YouTube extravaganza. I am your host. My name is Mackenzie. I am the content producer, I guess you could say, for Team Rivalry. Forgive the background noise. It is warm in the apartment on a second story apartment here, but it is frigid and windy outside. So because of that, I have the window open and it is very, very nice. I'm going to be talking some week 3 recap along with our week 4 picks. I realized last week I kind of forgot to mention the Team Rivalry picks, I guess you could say, the official Team Rivalry picks as they were. Not too much that's actually official about them. It's not like we run them through an algorithm or anything like that, but it's fun. We have our methods of picking games. I'm not saying it's scientific or anything. I'm just saying it might just be random. I don't know. All right, if I can we got the display capture working properly this time. So what you can see here on your screen is the Team Rivalry website, which I should probably put the the URL for which in the stream. That'd be a good idea so you guys can get to it. Putting it in chat. I don't know if there's going to be a replay or anything like that. That would be interesting. Saying the current bitrate is lower than recommended, so we might be having some playback issues. I don't know, but I'll go ahead and throw that in the description when the stream's over. I can't really figure out how to do that while on it. I'm still kind of new at this, I guess you could say. Oh, the title is wrong, though. What the heck is going on here? What is this operation? Guess I'll fix that after the stream, too. There's a placeholder. Jeez, the things you forget when you go on streaming like this. Did, however, fix the display thing, so that was the biggest thing that I wanted to get done before the stream. Oh, jeez. Goodness gracious. How about last week in the Big Ten? Some interesting games. Not a whole lot of surprises, I don't think. Although I think in terms of my picks, I didn't exactly do very well. Maybe I'll go back through those, or maybe we'll just go through the games and I'll remember who I picked. We'll start off with I can do this on the right here. All right, so check this out. So this is one of the first feature I'm going to show you on the website now is the game day feature. So Team Rivalry is a database of college football games. We have I think we have every Big Ten football game ever played for every Big Ten team, and that includes Big Ten teams that are no longer a part of the Big Ten, I'm pretty sure. But that also includes their games against back in the early 1900s when they were playing against high schools, or the late 1800s when it was, club games or basically what we would now think of as like intramural or something like that. It's a whole lot of data, a whole lot of interesting stuff there. It's really interesting. We were looking at the rivalries today, and Purdue versus Illinois, the longest winning streak for, I want to say, Illinois was 6 games, and it came between 1904 and 1911, which is just wild. I mean, the literal longest win streak for Illinois against Purdue is first off only 6 games, which I think is kind of funny. I don't know why. But secondly, the fact that it came, before World War One, that's crazy. Just a crazy little factoid, but it's really interesting the things that you can see here. I mean, we've got upcoming games, we've got the recent games, and then there's also the Team Rivalry podcast, which is kind of in limbo right now. This is basically it, but we used to have an audio version that I was working on last year, still trying to get a hang of things. And then obviously the Team Rivalry YouTube thing. We have the YouTube channel over here, and then you can click on the logo of your favorite team. That's pretty cool. You can't really see the entire screen because I had to zoom in a little bit, but there are a whole bunch of logos beneath what you see on the screen right now. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of interesting data. So one of the things that's really cool about the site, though, is that you can go to the game day tab up here, click on that. You've got game day here. You just pick a season. We've got literally, let's see, the earliest you can go, 1869. Isn't that wild? 1869. Oh, you can't see it over there. It didn't load it. Yeah, see, 1869. On November 6th, 1869, Rutgers played Princeton. Oh, you can't see it. Here, I'll move it up. I think you can see it now. Hopefully you can see it. I'll check the stream and make sure you can see it at the same time. You can see it there. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can see it. Yeah. So Rutgers played Princeton, and Rutgers won 6-4. Man. Back when Rutgers was good. Rutgers is 3-0. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? They're not having an awful season. That's pretty sweet. All right, so back to the 2021 season. Show me the games. We're going to go to 9/17/2021. That's going to be the first day of week 3. That was Friday the 17th. We're starting off with Maryland versus Illinois. Maryland pulling out a close victory against Illinois. I feel like this game, it probably should have been a little bit further away for Maryland. I feel like Maryland's been having a pretty good season so far, so I'm wondering why this game was actually this close. But they did end up winning after all. So, Illinois showing some fight against Maryland, but in the end, Maryland gets it. We're not going to go too in-depth into that game. 9/18, though. Boom. Got all of the games here. All of them. You can see Auburn and Penn State down at the bottom. Here, actually, this is what I'll do is I'll show this so that we can get more of the bottom. All right. Oh, my goodness. My phone is lighting up. Why is my phone lighting up? Leave me alone, people. All right. So in terms of what I wanted to discuss this week, so a lot of really random things happened in the Big Ten this last week. So Michigan State, I think, by far, we'll just go ahead and start with that one. That was the one that I wanted to start with anyway. I'll open that in a new tab, and then we'll make our way down to I wanted to discuss Minnesota, see what's going on there, and then we can also talk about most of the stuff that I want to talk about is stuff that we're going to get to when I actually make the picks. But to start things off, I think Michigan State easily had, on paper, what I would call the most impressive victory over the weekend. I think, going on the road, I don't care who the team is, going on the road and beating a ranked team, that far away from your home state is definitely it's an accomplishment. It's definitely an accomplishment. Serious stats, this should be, I think this is the first meeting between Michigan State and Miami. I don't think that's true. I think Miami had, so we have to update some data there, but I think Miami had a couple of wins over them. I think Michigan State going down to Miami and winning this game was definitely a surprise, especially for me because I called Miami to win the game. I can't remember what I called, but Michigan State had a lot more on offense than I thought they would. Not only that, but they also put up with the elements a lot better than I thought they would. I mean, it was hot down there. I heard that on the field it felt something like 90, 95 or whatever, and they had fans cooling the players off. They were misting the players and stuff like that. They had tents for some shade and all that going on too. So definitely a crazy environment going on there. But you have to look at like what is going on with Miami. Coming into the season, Miami was supposed to be the team that was going to give Alabama a run for their money, right off the bat. That very clearly did not happen. That absolutely did not happen. Miami, I think they had a couple of good quarters against them, if I'm not mistaken. But when it came down to it, obviously Alabama ended up winning, and I believe running away with it. If I can find my notes here. Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. I can just go here. Yeah, so Alabama. I think against Alabama, Miami had a couple of good quarters, but then Alabama ended up winning 44-13. And then since then, Miami barely beat Appalachian State. Appalachian State. They're not FCS anymore. Obviously, Michigan helped them with that, but they're not exactly. They're not Power 5 by any means. And they just barely beat them there. Michigan State, though, so this is where things get kind of interesting in terms of questioning who's or what's going on here exactly. Is Michigan State a lot better than we thought they were, or is Miami a lot worse? So that's kind of one of those questions that you have to wait for the rest of the season to play out to understand exactly what you're going to get from both of those teams. Michigan State is very obviously better than we thought they were going to be. Now, is that better in terms of they're actually a contender? Like, are they gonna compete for the Big Ten championship, or does that just mean better as in like, oh, actually their competition turned out to be far more incompetent than we thought they were, and Michigan State just has the wherewithal, or at least the organizational structure, to be able to put together a game plan that's good enough to beat those inferior teams? How inferior are those teams exactly? That's kind of the question that you have to worry about in situations like this. So this is a situation where, moving forward, Michigan State has to wonder, like, are we actually good? And it seems for the most part like Michigan State might actually be good. Now, here's the interesting part, is that they have to face a Nebraska team coming up here, and I'll go more in depth into this when I make the pick. But I wanted to address this real quick. Michigan State has to be wondering who they are exactly. Now, who they are, they're a lot like Michigan in that they are running the ball, and they're running the ball fairly well. I can't remember the name of their running back. I'm going to look it up real quick. I believe it's Kenneth Walker III. 493 rushing yards so far on the season. And then Peyton Thorne actually has 726 passing yards so far. So so maybe I spoke a little too soon. They've actually got a pretty balanced offense. That said, who have they played? They've played Miami, who's now 1-2, and they've played Northwestern, who is, I don't even remember, what is Northwestern. Northwestern is also 1-2, and Northwestern also just lost to Duke, so that's not exactly what you would call a good win. Anybody's going into Northwestern at this point and beating them, because Northwestern's not very good. And then their other win, 42-14 against Youngstown State. Again, Youngstown State, they allowed a garbage time touchdown, but they also allowed a touchdown against them in the second quarter. So Youngstown State had some fight in them. Youngstown State put up 304 yards of total offense on them. And now the reason you're not seeing me put this on the screen is because we don't actually have like game by game data. This is a small operation, guys. Like, we're trying to keep this running with just a couple of people working on this. So, cut us some slack. 304 yards for Youngstown State in that game. Not exactly a great showing by that defense then. If Michigan State goes up against a defense that knows how to finish, put the ball in the end zone, that could spell some trouble. And they almost did. Miami had a couple of drives late that I think one of them ended in the end zone, another one in a field goal, I want to say. They had a fourth quarter field goal and then a third quarter touchdown. So, basically saying that Michigan State has some pieces there, but they've actually played some weak competition. Now, moving forward, does this mean that they can rise to the level of the competition that they have coming? Absolutely. They have what they need. Are they as strong Are they strong enough to keep up with that, or with what they're doing so far, though? Man, that was a jumble of words. Is Michigan State strong enough to play an entire season? Can they last 4 quarters against a team that is also competent? And then if they can't, maybe this means Michigan State is one of those middle of the road kind of teams right now. Michigan had a lot of those middle of the road teams under Rich Rod and Hoke. I mean, they also had a lot of, way below average kind of teams. But under Hoke, I mean, there were a couple of times. I mean, there was one time under Rich Rod, and then like twice under Brady Hoke, where Michigan started the season 4-5-6-0, and then played Michigan State and lost, and then finished the season like, I don't know, 2-4 or something like that. So yeah, some questions moving forward for Michigan State, but they're definitely enjoying a good start to this season for sure. Minnesota. So this is an interesting game, and I gotta take notes during the day of the things that I think of that I want to talk about on the evening streams, because like I go all day. I work a day job, so I go all day thinking like, oh yeah, I want to talk about that because Ohio State sucked and this is why, and understanding like the broader picture and all that. This is stuff that I'll get to when I start making the picks and all that, and I think that's where a lot of the structure for the show is going to come. So you're watching a lot of the growing pains take place here. So congratulations, you're witnessing history. But Minnesota is interesting to me because I don't get them. And I don't know if a lot of people get them. I don't hear a lot of people talking about Minnesota at this point. So I'm going to venture to guess that maybe Minnesota is just irrelevant. They're 2-1. There's another team in the Big Ten that is 2-1, and they're still talking about them like that they're basically a shoo-in for the Big Ten championship. And I'll give you 3 guesses as to who that team is. Did you guess? No, here's the deal. So Minnesota loses to that other team, being Ohio State, 45-31 early in the season. They had 2.5 good quarters against Ohio State. Two and a half good quarters against Ohio State. Those 2.5, the 2 good quarters being the second and fourth quarter, the half quarter being the third quarter, and then the first quarter was just They made it to halftime with the lead. What I'm talking about is offensive efficiency, because this season anyway, you're not going to beat Ohio State with a good defense. Ohio State, Ohio State at this point doesn't have much of a defense themselves, so the thing you'll need to do against them is play good enough defense to get their offense off the field a couple of times, and then keep your offense on the field. And the more your offense can score, I'm about to say the most straightforward, obvious thing ever, but the more your offense can score, the better a chance you'll have of beating Ohio State, because you're basically going to get into a shootout with them every single game. Ohio State had the first 2 scores. Minnesota returned with 2 touchdowns. Ohio State touchdown, Minnesota touchdown. I mean, trading touchdowns there for a little bit, and then Ohio State runs away with a couple of back-to-back touchdowns. So Minnesota had something there, and that was promising for the Gophers. I mean, anyone watching this game would think, okay, Ohio State is a good, competent team. They don't have a whole lot on defense, but also Minnesota is known for some pretty good offenses lately. PJ Fleck. PJ Fleck has had some very good offenses in his head coaching tenures, both at Western Michigan and at Minnesota. The difference is that his defenses haven't exactly been that great. I know at Western Michigan during the 2016 season, they had some pretty good defensive showings. But in the game that won them the MAC West, I think they're in, the game that won them the MAC West was against Toledo, and they allowed 35 points in that game. Now, they scored 55, I think, but they allowed 35, and how many times are you going to be able to do that in a Power 5 conference, which is what Minnesota's finding out. So Minnesota then plays Miami of Ohio the next week and only beats them by 5 points. 5 points. Miami of Ohio they were never in the lead, but they were never out of it either, which is crazy. Look at this. Fourth quarter touchdown. Again, I'm not looking at team rivalry for these stats. I'm looking elsewhere. But fourth quarter touchdown, Miami puts them at 20-21. Minnesota's lead still. I guess they oh yeah, it was 13-21 and then 20-21. I thought maybe they missed the kick, but they didn't. So Miami of Ohio, not exactly a strong team by any means. Miami of Ohio was 0-2 going into this game and is 1-2 now with a win over, who is this? Long Island University. So no, stop. No. So now, the very next week, what does Minnesota do? Minnesota then goes to a Pac-12 opponent. Pac-12 opponent. As a 1-1, I imagine an underdog going into this game. I can't remember the line. And they go on the road and they post a 30-0 drubbing of the Buffaloes. It makes no sense. Now, who is Colorado? Colorado is 1-2 after this game. They had a 10-7 very close game against number 5 Texas A&M. Texas A&M is still a pretty good team. That's a good game right there. They were home against Texas A&M. They lose to them by 3 points by a field goal. Now, if you're Colorado coming out of that game, you're looking at Minnesota like we have a really great shot of rebuilding something here. I mean, they blasted the University of, I believe that's Northern Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, the Colorado Bears. They blasted them 35-7. Blasted. They beat them soundly. 35-7. They lose a very close game to Texas A&M. Coming out of that game, you're like, okay, we need to fix some things on offense. But defensively, they held Texas A&M to 10 points. That's really, really good. Coming into Minnesota, it's like we have a shot. I mean, we can do something. Frankly, if they won out, they would win the Pac-12 and maybe possibly find themselves in the playoffs. Now, I understand that nobody had that expectation for Colorado coming into the season, but this is what I'm saying. From a week-to-week basis, things can change. They were probably coming out of that Texas A&M game thinking, well, oh my goodness, we have something here. This is interesting now. What can we do with this? And then Minnesota comes in at 1-1 with, having just barely hobbled off the field against Miami of Ohio and destroys them. Destroys Colorado 30-0. So on the flip side of this, I understand I started talking about Minnesota and flipped to Colorado. My point here is that we don't understand who Minnesota is. And I really don't. I really don't understand who Minnesota is right now. And it makes it extremely difficult to call their games. And I imagine I'm probably going to be off with what I called this week. Their game is against Bowling Green. Bowling Green's a weak opponent. Not concerned with that. I mean, they'll beat them. For sure they'll beat them. But I just don't know what to make of it. Now, I was going to talk about Auburn and Penn State here, but I think we're running a little long. So I think I might just go ahead and skip over to the picks. Where are we at? We're live. We're at 23 minutes. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the picks. I want to wrap up here. All right. So this is pretty sweet, actually, just real quick. So you'll see the stadium they played at over here. You'll see series stats here. Auburn, Penn State obviously just took the lead against Auburn. This needs to get filled in. Obviously, we don't have SEC data just yet. This is still a work in progress. This is the third meeting between Auburn and Penn State. Longest winning streak was 1-1. 1996 for Penn State, 2003 to Auburn. Yeah. Anyway, James Franklin record here. You'll find that to the bottom. Or I'll move my. Oops. No, goodness gracious. I will move me over. That's fun. And you can see we've got James Franklin's record at Penn State is 59-26-0 against Auburn. That should read 1-0 now. We'll have to. The score is filled in. That should have updated. We'll get that fixed. So that's pretty sweet. Some interesting stuff here. The more this grows, the better the site will become, the better the data will be, and the easier to use. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the schedule tab, and you can see, we'll see everybody. Oh, wait, nope. We're actually going to go to game day. I'm sorry. We're going to stay on game day, and we're going to go to regular season 4, week 4 of the regular season. I mean, we should have a game on Friday, though. I think there's a Friday game. Is there no Friday game? Let me double check that. There had to have been a Friday game. There's been a Friday game every week up until this point. I don't understand why there wouldn't be now. Week 4. No, all Saturday games. Sweet. Well, that kind of sucks, though. I like going to the gym and watching the Friday game. That's all right. The Friday games are usually bad. Yeah, all right. So, first off, Illinois at Purdue. Then we're going to go to... Oh, my goodness. What do we got? These are out of order from what I put down on my piece of paper. I should probably get this figured out before I start the stream, but that's okay. Who cares? So we're going to start with Illinois at Purdue. You can see here we have the Big Ten logos, which are loud and proud. That's awesome. Illinois 1-3, Purdue 2-1. You can see we've got coaching information. We have series stats. This is the 96th meeting. And then, yeah, as I said, Illinois' longest winning streak against Purdue is 6 games from November 25th, 1906 to November 4th, 1911. Purdue's longest winning streak is 5 games from October 4th, 2003 to October 24th, 2009. Jeff Brom's record at Purdue is 14-19, fairly disappointing. Against Illinois, though, he's 2-1. Brett Bielema's record, obviously he just started at Illinois, so he'll be at 1-3. Yeah, 1-3. Jeez. Sad. I mean, they started off so strong against Nebraska. I understand it's Nebraska, but come on, this is also Illinois we're talking about, so give them a break. All right, Illinois at Purdue. So Purdue is currently favored by 11. I agree with that. I think that's a good line. That makes sense. I don't make the lines. I don't have to agree with anything. That's just how it is. For right now, this isn't really that important of a game anyway. I mean, it doesn't exactly have conference implications, but here's the deal. So Purdue, I think, might be a little bit stronger than what their record suggests. Now, they did just lose to Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been struggling. I understand that. Notre Dame is still Notre Dame. They're a good team. If Purdue were to struggle against any opponent on their schedule and lose to them, Notre Dame is a good first loss to get out of the way. Shake off the cobwebs a little bit, get used to the bigger bodies and stuff like that in there, and then figure out what they want to do moving forward. It's a good learning experience for them, and they almost won. Now, that's something I want to bring up too. What if Purdue had won that game? First off, where does that leave Notre Dame? Probably in a pile of suck. I understand that, but Purdue, all of a sudden, you're looking at Purdue like a viable option to win the Big Ten East. They're in the East, aren't they? Can't believe I don't know that off the top of my head. I mean, I only ever pay attention to Michigan and Ohio State. I have that blue blood bias, I guess you could say. What, don't they list it on here? What the heck? West. They're in the West. Oh, they're in the, yeah. That's what I thought. So, I mean, a viable option for the West, because who else have you got in the West? You've got, Wisconsin, who lost to Penn State. You've got Northwestern's nothing. Indiana has been losing. Their other competition is going to end up being Iowa. Their other competition's going to end up being Iowa at that point. Minnesota, I mean, if Minnesota ends up getting something figured out, then we'll see. But in the meantime, I don't know. Anyway, so without going way too in depth into the Illinois-Purdue game and spending all of our time on this, I'm just going to go ahead and make the call. My call is I'm going to take Purdue to win at home 30-21, and the team rivalry call is Purdue 21-14. So we will then go back to game day. Next up is Colorado State at Iowa. We'll go ahead and follow that up here with these games. I'm just going through the tabs to make sure everything is tabbed up. See, that's the beauty of live streaming, is that I can kind of pause for a second, but as long as I'm still talking, like, you're not bored. I hope. Colorado State at Iowa. Colorado State's weak. They're not 0-0. I know that much. But, oh, this is the first meeting between them. That's kind of sweet. I think it is anyway. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, 140-83. Iowa has outscored their opponents 91-30. So Iowa definitely looking good. They're number 5 in the nation. Definitely, I think they're one of the more surprise
teams coming out of the first 3 weeks so far. I mean, they had that really impressive victory at Iowa State, and then since then, I think that they've who have they played? Who did they play last week? Kent State. I think their offense is a little bit slow still, but if their defense is willing to do what their defense has been doing, then who cares? What does it matter? I mean, they're doing really well. The problem with a defense like that, though, is that they're not going to be sustainable moving forward. They're going to run into some offenses that can throw the ball and run the ball a lot better than the teams that they've played so far can. Now, I think Iowa State's got a good future ahead of them in terms of this particular season. Iowa's currently favored against Colorado State by 23 points. That's a hefty line there. But as it stands right now, so like points allowed per game, Iowa's sitting pretty at 10 points per game allowed on defense. That's good. That's a good metric for them there. Only 30 points per game on offense, though. And now, one of those games is against Indiana. Indiana's not doing too hot, unfortunately for them. The other game is against Kent State. Now, the Kent State one is the one that I'm kind of interested in, I guess you could say, because Kent State's not exactly a strong MAC team. Even for the MAC, they're kind of weak. So my thing is, Iowa only put up 30 points against this weak MAC team. It's enough, and it's more than enough because the defense only allowed 1 touchdown. Now, if your defense only allows 1 touchdown for the rest of the season, fine. 30 points is fine. But even Ohio State looks extraordinarily vulnerable right now, and they're still putting up 40-some-odd points per game. Heck, Michigan, Northern Illinois is not a bad team, and Michigan just put 63 points up on them. So, 30 points is fine when you're beating good teams, but they haven't really beaten. I shouldn't say that. I'm about to get way ahead of myself. They beat Iowa State. Iowa State's a good team. They scored 27 points on them, almost 30. So that's fine. That's a fine metric, but you're going to run into some offenses that are even better than Iowa State. And for as bad as Ohio State's looked, they're way better than Iowa State. Their offense is a lot stronger. So you're going to need to score more points. That's going to be the trick for Iowa. Obviously, this is still a throwaway game, though, so I'm going to go ahead and call Iowa to win 40-10. I think that they're going to put up a few more points against a pretty weak Colorado State team who's currently allowing 24 points per game. That's not a bad showing per se, but their only win is against Toledo, and they only beat them 22-6. So there's that. They also lost to San Diego State 42-23. So yeah, Iowa should be putting up 40 points on them. No problemo. Next up, speaking of Kent State at Maryland. All right, so the Golden Flashes are not 0-1. They're something else. We'll get that updated. Maryland has outscored their opponents 112-41 this season. Maryland's looking good. Maryland looks really good. Oh my goodness, I wish I could remember the name of their quarterback. It's Tua's little brother, Talia. Well, now, find me my thing here, please. Where's Maryland? Uh-oh. What happened to my Maryland tab? Anybody understand why Indiana's going to Western Kentucky? Like, why is that a thing? Anyway, I have to get back to my Maryland tab here in a sec. Maryland, there you are. Thanks for showing up. All right, Maryland at Kent State. Yeah, so Maryland is looking really good. They're scoring 37 points a game. They're allowing 14-ish. Not too shabby at all, especially for Maryland. Maryland has oh, there's a train. Maryland has struggled the past couple of seasons, but they seem to be getting better. They seem to be that team that just kind of gets annoying. They get, kind of annoying to those better teams that don't want to get upset. I know Maryland almost beat Ohio State back in 2018, I think it was, or 2019. I can't remember. when what was his name? Dwayne Haskins was the starter for Ohio State. I can't remember if he started 1 or 2 seasons. I think just 1, because then he went off to the NFL, and then it was Justin Fields in 2019. So, yeah. Total yards 517. Total yards allowed 279. A little bit high there. My thing is that if Maryland comes up against an offense that knows how to score, which they haven't just yet, except for West Virginia. West Virginia, huge win over Virginia Tech, I want to say. Big win there against West Virginia. If they come up against an offense that knows how to score, knows how to put the ball in the end zone, allowing those kinds of yards, it's no longer a bend, don't break kind of situation. It's a bend and please don't break, because they're going to come up against some stronger offenses, and their defense is going to need to step up. I think that depending on the opponent, they probably could do it. Now, their offense is scoring enough points. Well, not enough, because, again, Ohio State's putting up 40s. Michigan's into the high 40s, low 60s at this point. So Maryland needs to find a way to not allow so many yards, because against better offenses, those offenses are going to be able to put the ball in the end zone. So anyway, again, not to focus too much on a game that really doesn't mean all that much, although if Maryland loses, then it's the end of their season. Not to be dramatic or anything, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call Maryland to win 35-10. I think that's about on par with what we can expect from their offense and their defense at this point. And then Kent State, I really don't see them scoring. I mean, they don't score much, period, but I just don't see them going over 10 points in this one. Team rivalry called Maryland 24-14. So giving the Golden Flashes a couple of touchdowns there. And then not a whole lot of love for the offense. So that's interesting. Next up, Northwestern. Nebraska at Michigan State. All right, here's where our data gets to fill out a little bit better, because we've got Big Ten versus Big Ten. Nebraska has outscored their opponents 118-63. Michigan State has outscored their opponents 118-52. Scott Frost's record at Nebraska, 12-20. Yeesh. And 1. They have a tie? Why didn't I know about this? Whatever. Against Michigan State, though, he's 1-0. Mel Tucker's record at Michigan State is 5-5. Obviously he took over during the Coof year. Longest winning streak for Nebraska, 7 games from 1914 to 2012. It's because they didn't play very often. So over almost, 98 years, they beat Michigan State 7 straight times. Boom. Look at that. Michigan State, 2 games from 2013 to 2014. And then latest winning streak. Oh, yeah, I forgot. We have that down at the bottom here. Latest winning streak, November 7th, 2015 to November 17th, 2018. It's 2 games there, because they didn't play in 2016 and 17, I guess. So anyway, yeah, interesting stats there. All right, in terms of who I think is going to win this game, so Michigan State, I just said that I talked about them earlier. They've been having a really good start to the season. Super, I guess you could say, super impressed with what they've done so far. It's been interesting anyway. The question really comes down to the caliber of the opponents that they've been playing. And I hate to be the hater. I certainly don't mean to be, that's for sure. But come on, guys. Northwestern's not doing anything relevant this year. Youngstown State is nothing. And I don't mean any disrespect to our friends at either of those schools. I don't actually have any friends at those schools, so I mean them all kinds of disrespect. But my point is this. They haven't played anybody. I understand going on the road, beating number 24 Miami, like that's a big deal. Sure, okay, that was a big deal when they had the 24 in front of their name, but now they're unranked, okay? Now Miami is unranked, and now Miami is going on to play. Who does Miami play next? Miami plays Central Colorado State? Who? Oh, Central Connecticut. Interesting. But now they're going on to play Central Connecticut, who, by the way, has the same record. That doesn't mean anything. I understand that. But they're gonna play them next, and then they're going up against Virginia, and then at number 21 North Carolina, and then home against NC State, at Pitt. I understand Pitt just lost to Western Michigan, so Pitt is up and down. Western Michigan's a pretty good team, though. That's a big deal that they lost to Western Michigan. But Western Michigan, I do think, is a pretty good team. Georgia Tech just went toe-to-toe with Clemson. So do you as a person watching this video right now, watching this extremely bad production of a guy who enjoys college football, talking about it with ridiculously long, messy hair and a Charleston, South Carolina sweatshirt, do you really see Miami winning very many more of its games? What I'll be interested to see, and this is the measuring stick game for me, it's not Central Connecticut, it's not Virginia, it's not over here in, what is this going to be, that's probably week 6, I think it is, against North Carolina. I don't think they're beating North Carolina, although North Carolina has been a mixed bag lately too. NC State, maybe, I don't know. But look at Florida State. That game, 3 games to the end of the season. That's going to define their season. And it might not define them in their book, but it's going to define them in my book. And it's going to tell me, like, okay, this is everything I need to know about the Miami Hurricanes and what this has to do with Michigan State's season. Now, Michigan State's going to have a couple of games by then. I mean, they'll have played Michigan by then. I think they'll have played Penn State. Penn State's the last game of the season, I want to say. And then Ohio State is up there somewhere. But the point is this. If Michigan State's a good team, then Miami is also a good team. And Miami will win enough games to continue making Michigan State look good the longer down the season we go. If Miami's not a good team, then Michigan State's stature will decrease. They won't look as good. That win against Miami will not look as good. And I tend to be the type of person who would say that win against Miami really isn't that big of a deal. It's a big enough deal that, they went on the road and they beat a ranked team. That's a big deal. How many times have we seen Michigan do that and it turns out that the ranked team that they beat isn't actually all that good? Beating ranked teams at home, and it's a big deal, and then that's not and then they end up not being as good. So that's my thing with Michigan State. Nebraska, on the other hand, is kind of interesting, and this is why I'm focusing on this game a little bit. Michigan State's only a 5-point favorite. 5 points. That means less than a touchdown. That means that the odds makers obviously think here that Nebraska has something worth looking at, and I think that they do. Check out this defense. Points allowed per game. Nebraska allows 16. 16. That Illinois game notwithstanding, take a look at this. The Illinois game notwithstanding, they lost 30-22, but if we don't pay attention to that, they have a win against, what is this, Fordham? Yeah, they have a win against Fordham, 52-7. If that had been their first game of the season, the narrative is completely different. Yes, you would have said, everyone down there in, where are you? Oh my goodness, where is Nebraska located? It doesn't matter, I can't remember. Lincoln. Everyone down there in Lincoln would have said, yeah, we get it's Fordham, but we beat them by 45 points. That's a big deal. That's what you expect from the first game of the season. That's the type of thing that Michigan does, that Ohio State does, that Wisconsin does. Those first games of the season. Now, obviously, Wisconsin, bad example because they played Penn State first game of the season. Bad scheduling on their part. But that's the type of thing that you see the Blue Bloods do, is schedule those weaker games in the first couple of games of the season, and they destroy those opponents. That's what Nebraska did here. 52-7 against Fordham. Buffalo, the following week, obviously there was something going on with the offense with Nebraska. There has been Taylor Martinez. What is his name? Taylor Martinez? Is it Adrian Martinez? Yeah, Adrian Martinez. Oh, I got that totally wrong. I'm sorry. Adrian Martinez has been iffy. I mean, there's no secret. It's no secret, rather, that he has been shaky at quarterback, and sometimes he's better than other times. So, I mean, anything could have been going on here. Buffalo has competed for the MAC championship within the last couple of years, so they're middle of the road to above average for a MAC team. So 28-3, yeah, it's a little low. It's a little closer than I would like it to be for it being a MAC team. But it's a win. It's a multi-score win. So there you go. It's this game against Oklahoma that just happened this last weekend that's super, super interesting to me. 23-16, Oklahoma wins. Where is that Oklahoma offense? Where did that go? And where did it go against a Nebraska team that was supposed to not be very good? This Nebraska team allowed 30 points against Illinois. Do you know how many times Illinois has scored 30 points since playing Nebraska? How many times has Illinois scored 30 points since playing Nebraska? They've scored 30 points one other time. And that was against University of Texas San Antonio, and they lost. So this is the interesting thing about it. Nebraska figured something out, and I think that they figured something out against Fordham. And I think that they kept it going, defensively speaking anyway, against Buffalo. And then defensively speaking, they did it again against Oklahoma, but the offense couldn't keep up. This is where, if Adrian Martinez, if that Nebraska offense were any more powerful, this is where they would win that game. If Nebraska wins this game against Oklahoma and the Illinois game never happened, all of a sudden Nebraska's 3-0 with a top 5 road win, and everybody's going to talk about how they're a dark horse for the playoffs. Is this Nebraska's year? That would have been the narrative. That would have been, they are finally at the point where they can take on Ohio State and Penn State to be that third chair, that third team in the Big Ten East to possibly go to Indianapolis. That would have been the narrative. Obviously, they lost. Still a close game. Still something potentially there. The problem comes in with Nebraska, though, where they have that one loss to Illinois. Unfortunately, that loss did actually happen. And so their conference record right now is 0-1. So they have to play some catch-up. But the thing is that the defense is there. The defense just stopped Oklahoma. This Oklahoma team that regularly puts up high 40s, low 50s kinds of points. They held them to 23 points. Now, maybe Oklahoma had a bad day. I don't know. But the point is that they're going into East Lansing to face another rather high-powered offense that's currently scoring 39.3 points a game. The difference is that their defense is allowing 17.3 points a game. So if Nebraska can do what they did against Fordham, if they can do what they did against Buffalo, and that is get the offense going a little bit better, they have a really solid shot of proving Michigan State to be kind of a fraud and saying, hey, actually, that fluke that we just had against Oklahoma, that's not a fluke. There's something here, and we can do something this season. And that's what I think is going to end up happening. So I don't think that the offense is going to be as fire as I want them to be, but I do think that they're going to be able to get something done because I think Nebraska's defense has something. I think that they've figured something out, and I think that Michigan State has played 3 weak opponents. And so I'm going to go ahead and take Nebraska as the underdog victor here, 24-21. Michigan State. Team Rivalry, however, is calling Michigan State 28-21. So looking at that Michigan State offense against the Nebraska defense, that's going to be the key there. Up next, we have Bowling Green at Minnesota. Not a whole lot of data on this one. Not going to spend any time on this because I don't want to, because we're already at 48 minutes and I don't want to talk about Bowling Green and Minnesota. Because I'm going to choose to overlook Minnesota. Now, look, I don't know what Minnesota's going to do the rest of the season. They're 2-1. They've only got a loss to a top 10 team at this point. I think Ohio State's number 10 still. For right now, that looks like a fine loss. The problem is that they struggled against Miami of Ohio. I don't understand what happened there. And then to go on the road and beat Colorado 30-0, it makes no sense. This call that I made is going to be totally off, and I don't know in which direction. So I just went ahead and went with an extreme. I'm calling Minnesota to win at home 50-10. And Team Rivalry called 35-3 Minnesota. Next game, Ohio at Northwestern. This game is meaningless. I don't care to talk about it. Northwestern is going to win, though. They're going to win 35-17 because Ohio is an extraordinarily weak MAC opponent this year, I think. Just kind of looking, I don't know, very, very basically at what they have going on so far. Let me just pull up. Yeah, oh, here we go. Yeah. Northwestern is a 2-touchdown favorite, just over 2 touchdowns. Northwestern just lost to Duke. 30-23. They only put up 24 points against Indiana State, and then obviously they lost against Michigan State. Now, that's kind of interesting, is that they put up 3 touchdowns against Michigan State. That is interesting. They put up more touchdowns at home against Michigan State than Miami did. Miami's not good, guys. That's what I have to say about this, is that Miami's not good. I think Michigan, whatever. And I'm not talking about them. Northwestern, I think, look, if they're the worst team in the Big Ten, but they're better than Miami, then the Big Ten's probably pretty good this year. Although, doesn't it feel like the entire Big Ten just seems to be struggling? Doesn't that seem to be what's going on here? I don't know. But yeah, anyway, Ohio is scoring 16 points a game, but they're allowing 35, so I'm not going to go any further. Northwestern 35-17. Team Rivalry is calling Northwestern 28-7, so not a whole lot of love for the Northwestern offense there, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with that call. Next up, Akron at Ohio State. Another non-conference opponent for the Buckeyes. Let's see if they can do any better against these guys. They've outscored their opponents 114-86. They've allowed 86 points so far this season. That's crazy. That's just crazy. Ryan Day's record at Ohio State, 23-2, still a really good record. Longest winning streak is Ohio State from 1895 to 2011, so they don't play very often. Wow, they don't play very often at all, do they? That's crazy. The last time Akron beat Ohio State was in 1894. Good Lord. A full 100 years, just over 100 years from when yours truly was born unto this planet, for better or for worse. Yeah, wow. Almost a month over. That's crazy. What a thing. What a very interesting thing. So yeah, not going to talk a whole lot about this, but obviously Ohio State's been struggling. The line is currently at the line currently favors Ohio State to win by 49.5 points. Sure, fine, whatever. I mean, Akron is allowing 40 points a game. They're scoring 23 points a game. Ohio State's scoring 38 points a game. They're allowing 28 points a game. I don't have a clue as to what Akron's going to be able to do against Ohio State, because I don't really know I don't know which Ohio State's going to show up this game. Is it going to be the Ohio State that showed up against Minnesota, that, you know, struggled for a little bit, but Minnesota's actually maybe possibly a good team, but Ohio State's just a little bit better, and so they were able to get the best of them? Or is this going to be the Ohio State that was toe-to-toe with Tulsa until later in the fourth quarter? Is this the Ohio State that allowed 35 points against Oregon? Oregon wasn't supposed to be able to beat Ohio State. They went on the road and did it. You know, I understand that Ohio State pulled away from Tulsa in garbage time, but Tulsa had opportunities there. If Tulsa hadn't shot themselves in the foot, it could be a completely different story. Yards allowed, 471 for the Buckeyes. Akron is at 397, so the Buckeyes have some work to do. That's a situation where, you know, when we already saw it, where Ohio State comes into contact with a good, competent offense, and they have a bend don't break mentality, but they bend a little too much there with the 471 yards allowed per game. That's per game. 471 per game. That's unacceptable. And like I said, we've already seen what happens when they run into a competent offense. What happens again? I mean, there are a couple of really competent offenses in the Big Ten that they have yet to face. I understand they're going to keep scheduling these easier games with MAC opponents. That's fine. I don't care. They scheduled Oregon, so I guess credit to them for that. But they need to get the defense figured out, and they said they were going to get it figured out against Tulsa, and they didn't. Tulsa's not good. Tulsa's not a good football team. Tulsa is currently 0-3 with losses against the University of, who even is this? The University of Colorado Davis. The University of Colorado Davis. Oklahoma State, we all know who they are. That's fine. and then Ohio State. So that was a what you might call a bad win for Ohio State. CJ Stroud looked positively shaky in that game, especially in the first 2 quarters. He looked shaky. That was, yeah. I mean, it was interesting to see the difference between his first half and his second half. Now, he settled in. He led the team to victory. That's important. But the fact is that if he starts that shaky against another competent team, I'm thinking of Wisconsin. I'm thinking of, well, excuse me. Good Lord, I've got the belches tonight. I'm thinking of Wisconsin right now, but I don't know if Wisconsin's going to continue to be that team. I don't know who they are. We'll find out against Notre Dame. But I'm looking at maybe Penn State. But I'm also looking at the way Michigan's offense right now is playing, and I'm like, yeah, if you're allowing 181 rushing yards a game and then 290 passing yards a game, you need to get that tightened up before that last game of the season, guys. I'm not about to call Michigan to win or anything. I don't know. We'll see when we get there. We've got a lot of games to go. But the fact is that Ohio State's defense really has to get something together. This will be an absolutely garbage game. This will be, the type of game that if you're a Buckeye fan, you don't mind missing if you have other plans or anything like that. So no disrespect to Akron, but sorry. I'm going to go ahead and call Ohio State to win it 42-14. I do think Akron's going to get a couple of scores in there. We'll see. And then Team Rivalry called Ohio State 42-3. No love for Akron. No love for Akron at Team Rivalry. This is the game of the week, and I'm not going to talk about it just yet. So we're going to go to Indiana at Western Kentucky. I don't care to talk about this one because Indiana's not doing very well, and they're playing at Western Kentucky, and God only knows why. Indiana 30-17. Team Rivalry is calling Indiana 28-14. Oh, should I save this one? Yeah, I'll talk about this one. Rutgers at Michigan. This is a battle of unbeatens. Wow. How crazy is that? Michigan number 19. This is the 8th meeting between Michigan and Rutgers. Rutgers currently this season has outscored their opponents 123-34. Whoo, boy. Michigan 141-34. Those are some good defenses right there. Those are some good defensive numbers through 3 games. And I think Rutgers and Michigan have played 3 competent offenses. Respectively. Greg Schiano's record at Rutgers is 20-15. I think he's had a couple of tenures at Rutgers, if I'm not mistaken. Against Michigan, though, he's 0-1. I believe their first meeting was last year, if I'm not mistaken. Jim Harbaugh's record at Michigan, 49-21. Against Rutgers, though, 6-0. Michigan's longest winning streak against Rutgers is currently 2015-2020. And then Rutgers, they won that one game against Brady Hoke in 2014. What a garbage game. I remember watching that game just like, did we just lose to Rutgers? I'm a Michigan fan. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm a Michigan fan. Yeah, interesting matchup. The fact that these 2 teams are coming into this game both undefeated. There's another train out there. Man, lots of trains tonight. Michigan is currently favored by 20 points. Currently, they're scoring 47 points a game. They're allowing 11. Rutgers, 41 points a game, and they're only allowing 11. They're actually both allowing 11.3 points a game. That's crazy to me. So we've got 2 pretty decent defenses coming into this game. Now, the question comes down to who have they played? And I think that there is a large distinction between the teams that Michigan and Rutgers have played, and unfortunately, that doesn't bode well for Rutgers. Michigan played a pretty competent offense in Western Michigan and held them to 14 points. That's a big deal because Western Michigan just went on the road against Pitt. Just went on the road against Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh, and beat them and scored the 3rd most points in school history doing it. I think that's the right stat. Anyway, point is that they just beat Pitt, and that's insane. Rutgers has a really impressive victory, 61-14 against Temple, 17-7 at Syracuse. That's a good win. And then 45-13 against Delaware. Now, these 3 teams, I think if you stack them up against the 3 teams Michigan played, I'm kind of curious to know how Northern Illinois would stack up against them. I know they would beat at least Temple and Delaware, but would they beat Syracuse? I don't know. The point I'm trying to make here, though, is that I think Michigan has had the tougher schedule so far. And then, unfortunately, Rutgers being on the road, not playing as many tough teams as Michigan has. They're putting up some seriously impressive numbers, but I think that they're going to find that they're run out of steam against Michigan. I think that it'll be an interesting game early, though. I want to say the first quarter is going to be interesting. I think Michigan will go to the half with the lead, maybe by 2 scores, and then Michigan will take over in the second half. Might take them a drive or two, but I think that they'll do it. My voice is drying out. I got to wrap this up. I went way too long. Michigan is going to take the victory 47-14 over Rutgers. Team rivalry calls Michigan 35-14. That's a little low for offense, I think, but that's okay. Villanova at Purdue. Penn State. Villanova at Penn State. Penn State obviously coming off that big win against Auburn. That's a big deal. Auburn, kind of a mixed bag, but I don't think that they're that bad of a team. I think Penn State's got something. I think Penn State has something interesting. I would like to see them get their offense together a little bit better. I'm not going to go into this one very in depth because it's Villanova. Sorry, guys. But I think if Penn State were to strengthen their offense a little bit, they've clearly got some good defense. I mean, they've played 3 games, only allowed 43 points. So a little lacking there, but they've also played. I mean, they played Auburn, and then they played. Who else did they play? I can't remember who they played. But the point is that I think that Penn State's real strength lies in their defense. And then just tightening up some things on offense and maybe getting some more consistency in the passing game really opens up some possibilities for the Nittany Lions. So I'm going to take the Nittany Lions to win 40-17. Team rivalry calls 42-3 Penn State. Absolutely no love for the Villanova offense. Sorry, Nova. All right, and now for our game of the week. Notre Dame at Wisconsin, although the game's at Soldier Field. This is the 17th meeting between Notre Dame and Wisconsin. We've got their records down here. I'm going to go pretty quickly because I want to wrap this up. My voice is dying. Wisconsin, I would like to know who Wisconsin is as well because, losing at home to Penn State 16-10, I think Graham Mertz as their quarterback has been fairly inconsistent. He's got a couple of interceptions. They've only played 2 games. They already had a bye week. They should be rested up and ready for Notre Dame. Notre Dame almost lost to Toledo. It took a couple of quarters to pull away from Purdue, and then obviously had that win against Florida State, and Florida State not looking too hot these days, guys. Florida State having some issues. Want to make sure they played Florida State before I go too far. Yeah, Florida State 41-38. Florida State obviously then lost to an FCS opponent. Currently Wisconsin's favored, but the thing is that Notre Dame scores 33 points a game, and Wisconsin only scores 22. And if you ask me, I think that Notre Dame has played 3 of the weaker opponents, just given the fact that Wisconsin's played Penn State. But Wisconsin played Penn State at home and lost. And they didn't score very many points in that game, and that's why. They lost, and that's why, is that they didn't score very many points. Notre Dame, on the other hand, despite the fact that, maybe the defense could use some help, allowing 29 points against Toledo and 38 against Florida State, the defense figured some stuff out against Purdue, but then the offense couldn't get going. So now Notre Dame is fairly inconsistent. If the Notre Dame that put up 41 points against Florida State shows up against Wisconsin, Notre Dame's winning this game because Wisconsin's offense is not built right now to put up 30 and 40 points a game. They're built to complement the defense, and if the defense fails, you're a fairly one-dimensional team at that point. It's more of a complementary football than it is a power football where, if the defense screws up, that's fine because the offense is really good. Or if the offense screws up, that's fine because the defense is really good. It was the kind of balance in offense and defense strategy that you saw with teams like Ohio State over the last couple of years where, especially in 2018, 2019, more like 2017, 2018, Ohio State's offense and defense were really complementary where, if the offense screwed up, the defense, especially with defensive end, was it Chase Young, just tearing up offenses and stuff like that. That was more complementary. Wisconsin's not complementary. They're all defense. Absolutely all defense. And if Graham Mertz throws some interceptions in this game, then and Notre Dame's offense shows up, then Notre Dame's going to win. But for right now, and I do have Notre Dame winning. So I do call Notre Dame to win 20-14 just because I don't think Wisconsin's offense is going to show up. And then I think Notre Dame's defense is going to do just enough, or their offense rather. So, give me the Irish. Give me the Irish to win. Oh my goodness, that's the end. That's the last game. I can't thank you guys enough for sticking around. If you did stick around, I'll put timestamps or something in the description or whatever. But if you listen to this whole thing, I do appreciate it. Still trying to work out the bugs, get some stuff figured out, make this show a little bit more streamlined. I know last week went pretty quick just because I had things planned out a little bit better, but we'll get there. We'll get there moving forward. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next week with some more recap, some more picks, and hopefully in like half the time.